What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Thursday, October 28th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 6-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. But before we get into these picks here tonight, I just want to say that yesterday, the point projections were all over the map. They were super high for a lot of players because we only had 3 games in the system, and some of those players had like 3 really good games. So now that we're getting into 4, 5, 6 games played for these players, these point projections are balancing out. They actually all look really good here tonight. So yesterday was a little off. I could tell they were a little off, but I was trying to go with the high value plays. But we're going to get back to these quality picks here tonight. So at the point guard position, now this is a stud, kind of an obvious pick, but I think he's going to outperform the other studs on the slate for a lower salary. So I like Trae Young from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Washington Wizards, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing point guards. Trae Young has averaged 46.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 33% usage rate. He's projected at 46.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value, but I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more in this one, get you 5 times value or more, and he's $9,400 DraftKings salary and $400 less on FanDuel. Now, Trae Young, the reason that I like this pick is because he's scored 55, 55, 54, and 78 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Wizards. Vegas thinks there's going to be 222 points scored in this game, so I like Trae Young here versus the Washington Wizards. Now, I also like Lonzo Ball from the Chicago Bulls playing the New York Knicks, who have the 8th worst defense overall, and they give up the 11th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Lonzo Ball has averaged 37.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 36 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He's projected at 37.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $7,500 DraftKings salary and $500 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 215 points scored in this game, so I like Lonzo Ball here versus the New York Knicks. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Donovan Mitchell has averaged 36.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 33% usage rate. Now, he's only projected at 37.7 fantasy points here tonight, and that's only 4.2 times value. But you'll see in a second why I think he's going to score 45 fantasy points or more in this one, get you 5 times value or more. He's $8,900 DraftKings salary, $600 less on FanDuel, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 222.5 points scored in this game. But the reason I like this pick is because Donovan Mitchell scored 52, 43, and 40 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Rockets. He plays very well versus the Houston Rockets, so I like Donovan Mitchell here versus the Houston Rockets. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, another shooting guard that I like. Here's a value play. I like Lonnie Walker from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Dallas Mavericks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing shooting guards, and Lonnie Walker has averaged 27.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. He's projected at 26.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.6 times value. He's $4,700 DraftKings salary, $500 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 221.5 points scored in this game, so I like Lonnie Walker here versus the Dallas Mavericks. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Saddiq Bey from the Detroit Pistons playing the Philadelphia 76ers, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, but they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Saddiq Bey has averaged 38 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He's projected at 39 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.7 times value. He's $6,800 DraftKings salary, the same price on FanDuel, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 217 points scored in this game, so I like Saddiq Bey here versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, now I also like Desmond Bane from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing forwards, but Desmond Bane has averaged 33 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He's projected at 32.4 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 6.6 times value. He's only $4,900 DraftKings salary. He's $900 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 233.5 points scored in this game, so a super high scoring game. Now, it is a back-to-back, but he only played 23 minutes last night, and he scored 29 fantasy points, so I think he's set to play towards his season average in minutes, so I like Desmond Bane here versus the Golden State Warriors. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Washington Wizards, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. John Collins has averaged 35.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He's projected at 35.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.7 times value. He's $6,300 DraftKings salary, $100 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 222 points scored in this game, and John Collins has scored 31, 46, 27, 48, and 31 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Wizards. So I like John Collins here versus the Washington Wizards.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, another power forward that I like is Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Draymond Green has averaged 30.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 14% usage rate. So he's only projected at 31.9 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 35 fantasy points or more in this game, get you close to 5 times value on DraftKings, because he's $7,400 DraftKings salary, but he's $1,000 less on FanDuel. So I love that FanDuel price. So I'm probably going to play Draymond Green on FanDuel. Not sure if I would pay up or play him on DraftKings, but Vegas does think that there's going to be 233.5 points scored in this game. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for fantasy points in this high-scoring game. And Draymond Green has scored 51, 43, 25, 41, and 30 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Grizzlies. So I think he's in a pretty good spot, especially on FanDuel. So I like Draymond Green here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Julius Randle from the New York Knicks playing the Chicago Bulls, who have a good defense overall, but they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Julius Randle has averaged 55.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 37 minutes per game with a 31% usage rate. He's projected at 55.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.8 times value. He's $9,500 DraftKings salary, $400 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 215 points scored in this game, and Julius Randle has scored 51, 49, and 51 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Bulls. So I like Julius Randle here versus the Chicago Bulls. Okay, now this next pick, I think this is a super underrated player. He was underrated all last year. His DFS salary always seems to be a little bit low compared to his upside. So I like Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing centers. Now, Rudy Gobert has averaged 46.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He's projected at 49.3 fantasy points here tonight. I think that's a fair projection. He scored 45, 49, and 45 fantasy points in his last 3 games. Also has a pretty good record in his last 3 games versus the Rockets, scoring over 40 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Rockets. So he's $8,300 DraftKings salary, the same price on FanDuel. Oh, that 49.3 fantasy point projection, that's 5.9 times value. So I think this is a good value play here tonight. Vegas thinks there's going to be 222.5 points scored in this game. Fantastic matchup. So I like Rudy Gobert here versus the Houston Rockets.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.